All right, so get this. We are diving deep into a book today, and it's called A Scatterbrained Person's Study Method.
Okay.
And yes, you heard that right. It was originally written in Korean.
Wow.
But I gotta tell you, the insights in this book are so good, it is worth every single subtitle.
Interesting.
I mean, if you're listening to this, you're probably looking to conquer those exams, even if you feel like your brain is kind of like a popcorn machine.
Yeah.
Right. And well, this author has been there and he's actually cracked the code.
Really?
So let's see what he's got.
Yeah. What really struck me right away was how this book just throws out the old perfect student mold.
Right.
It's like finally someone gets that not everyone thrives on, like endless hours of just laser focus.
It's so validating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the author even shares a story about getting slapped by his teacher for being scatterbrained.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
He always felt like he was kind of in the shadow of his brother, who was like the focused one,
Yeah.
eased everything so effortlessly. And I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of not measuring up,
Absolutely. And that comparison game can really mess with their confidence.
For sure.
But what's cool is that this author didn't try to become someone he wasn't.
Yeah.
He had this like aha moment where he realized he needed to work with his natural tendencies.
Yes.
Instead of fighting them.
And that is where the 10,000-hour myth gets busted.
Right.
I mean, we've all heard that that's the magic number for mastery.
Right.
But this book argues that it's not about brute force time. It's about how you actually use that time.
Right.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Which is music to my ears. So
Totally.
let's get to the tactical stuff. Like, how does this actually play out in exam prep?
He's got some really clever techniques,
Yeah.
like for multiple choice tests.
Okay.
He suggests writing out your reasoning for each answer,
Interesting.
even if you think you know it. It sounds a bit extra,
Okay.
but hear me out.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
When you write out your logic, you're basically forcing your brain to actively engage with the material.
Okay.
You can't just coast on intuition or like vague memory. You have to actually articulate why you chose that answer.
Oh.
It's like shining a spotlight on any fuzzy thinking
Uh-huh.
or gaps in your understanding.
So it's not just about getting the right answer.
Right.
It's about understanding the why behind it.
Exactly. And then during review, you only focus on the questions that you got wrong.
Oh.
This is genius because you're targeting your weaknesses directly
Right.
and not wasting time on stuff you've already mastered.
Right.
It's like a laser-focused study session.
Wow.
Which is perfect for someone with a shorter attention span.
Okay, that's a game changer.
I know.
What about essay questions?
Oh, yeah.
Those can feel so overwhelming.
He's got a great system for those, too.
Okay.
He starts with a bare-bones structure,
Oh, okay.
kind of like table of contents,
Right.
and then builds upon it gradually. This prevents that deer-in-the-headlights feeling when you're staring at a blank page.
Yeah, it's like building a house, right? You
Yeah.
start with the framework and then add the details one by one.
Exactly. And it keeps things manageable, which is key for someone who tends to get overwhelmed easily.
Yeah.
Plus, it forces you to think about the big picture before getting lost in the weeds.
So it's not about memorizing every single detail.
Right.
It's about understanding the key concepts
Yeah.
and how they connect to each other. This is making me rethink my entire approach to studying.
That's the power of this book.
Wow.
It really challenges the conventional wisdom and offers a fresh perspective on learning.
And speaking of fresh perspectives, I love how this author doesn't shy away from cramming. But he's got a twist.
Right.
He only starts the rote memorization in the final 30 days.
That's so interesting.
I know, right?
Most people start with the memorization and end up burned out way before the exam.
Right, but his approach is more like a strategic sprint at the end.
Yeah.
Once you've already built a solid foundation of understanding.
So it's like focusing your energy where it matters most.
Exactly. Okay, so we've tackled like some serious study strategies.
Yeah.
But let's be real, like motivation can be a roller coaster, right?
Right.
It's like 1 minute you're crushing it and the next you're like ready to throw in the towel.
It's the universal struggle.
Totally.
And so many books treat motivation like this like magical force you can just summon at will.
Right.
But this author gets it. He knows it ebbs and flows, and he actually like embraces that.
That's so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like he gives you permission to have those blah days without feeling like a failure.
Yeah.
He even talks about his own struggles with wanting to give up,
Yeah.
even after figuring out a system that worked for him.
Exactly. He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
He talks about how he'd hit those walls.
Yeah.
And that's where his mini rituals come in,
Oh, yeah.
like organizing his pens.
Right.
It seems so simple,
Yeah.
but it was like his way of hitting the reset button.
It's almost like a mindfulness technique, right?
Yeah.
Like a way to bring yourself back to the present moment and break out of a mental rut.
Totally.
So I'm curious, like, what are some of your go-to strategies when your motivation kind of dips?
For me, it's all about breaking down those big, scary goals
Yeah.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Right.
Each little win, no matter how small,
Yeah.
gives you a little burst of motivation to keep going.
It's like building momentum, right?
Yeah,
One step at a time.
totally.
And the book also talks about setting realistic goals, too.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in aiming for perfection right out of the gate,
Right.
which can be totally paralyzing.
That's true. The author encourages us to focus on progress,
Yeah.
not perfection.
Right.
It's a much healthier and more sustainable approach to learning.
And this is where it gets really interesting because the book goes beyond just exams.
Yeah.
It frames this whole like exam prep mindset as a skill set that's valuable for anything you want to achieve in life.
Absolutely. It's about learning effectively how to manage your time and energy,
Yeah.
how to overcome challenges.
Yeah.
These are all skills that are transferable to any field.
He's basically saying that exam prep is like a microcosm of life, right? We're
Yeah.
constantly facing new challenges, learning new things, pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones.
It's a never-ending process of growth and evolution.
Yeah.
And the key, as our author discovered, is not to try to force ourselves into some predefined mold,
Yeah.
but to figure out what works for us as individuals
Right.
and then build upon those strengths.
It's about embracing our own unique rhythm.
Yeah.
Even if it means going against the grain or challenging conventional wisdom.
Totally.
What I love about this book is that it gives you permission to be yourself.
Yeah.
To learn in a way that feels authentic and sustainable for you.
And it reminds us that we all have the capacity to learn and grow,
Right.
regardless of our perceived limitations.
Okay, I'm hooked. What else did you find particularly insightful in this section?
One thing that really stood out to me was the author's emphasis on music,
Oh, yeah.
not just listening to it for enjoyment,
Right.
but using it strategically to get into the study zone
Okay.
or to snap out of a slump.
Oh, yeah. He's big on finding what works for you, even if it's unconventional.
Exactly.
So what kind of music does he recommend? Like, does he have any specific playlists or genres that he swears by?
He doesn't get super specific about genres, but he talks about the importance of finding music that matches the energy you're trying to cultivate.
Okay.
So if you need to focus, maybe something calming and instrumental.
Right.
But if you're feeling sluggish and need a boost,
Yeah.
something upbeat and energizing could be the ticket.
It's like creating a soundtrack for your study session.
Exactly.
I love that. And speaking of things that can make or break your focus,
Yeah.
the book also touches on phone addiction.
Oh, yeah.
It's the struggle of our generation, right?
It's a constant battle.
It is.
But what's interesting is that the author doesn't advocate for this all or nothing approach.
Mm.
He doesn't say you have to completely ditch your phone,
Right.
which, let's be honest, is probably unrealistic for most of us.
So what's his strategy?
He talks about gradually replacing that mindless scrolling time
Yeah.
with activities that actually recharge you,
Okay.
things that nourish your mind and body instead of draining them.
It's like shifting your focus from consumption to creation,
Yeah.
or at least something more intentional and fulfilling.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about how you spend your time and energy.
Okay, that's a great segue into another key theme in this book,
Okay.
the importance of sleep.
Oh, yeah.
The author even mentions Ariana Huffington's sleep revolution,
Right.
which, let's be real, is a revolution we all need to join.
Seriously, sleep is so crucial for everything.
I know.
Learning, decision-making, stress management.
Yes.
It's like hitting the reset button for your brain and body.
It's not a luxury. It's a necessity.
Right.
And yet so many of us sacrifice sleep in the name of productivity,
Right.
which is totally counterproductive in the long run.
It's like trying to run a car on fumes.
Yes.
Eventually, you're going to hit a wall.
Speaking of hitting walls, there's one more big topic I want to explore.
Okay.
How to deal with those inevitable moments of overwhelm.
Yeah.
We've talked about mini rituals,
Right.
but the book also mentions exercise as a go-to strategy.
There's so much science backing this up.
I know.
Exercise is like a miracle drug for your brain.
It is.
It boosts cognitive function, reduces stress, and can even improve your mood.
The author describes it as quelling that inner fire of anxiety,
Yeah,
which I think is such a powerful image.
I agree.
It's like exercise gives you an outlet for all that pent-up energy
Right.
and helps you clear your head.
It's like hitting the refresh button for your entire system.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything crazy intense,
Right.
even a short walk or some gentle stretching can make a big difference.
It's about finding what works for you and making it a regular part of your routine. Okay, I'm feeling inspired. What about you? What are some of your favorite ways to de-stress and recharge?
I'm a big fan of spending time in nature,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's a hike in the woods, a walk on the beach, or even just sitting in my backyard.
Yeah.
Something about being outdoors just calms my mind. It helps me feel more grounded.
I love that nature is the ultimate reset button,
It is.
and it's accessible to everyone no matter where you live.
Exactly. You don't need any fancy equipment or a gym membership.
Right.
Just step outside and breathe in some fresh air.
So simple, yet so powerful.
I know, right?
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this part, but there's one final piece of the puzzle I want to explore.
Okay.
How can we apply the author's insights to our everyday lives, even if we're not students? That's for part 3. Okay, so we've uncovered some seriously cool study hacks from a scatterbrained person's study method. But here's the thing. I think these ideas go way beyond acing exams.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The author himself talks about how exam prep taught him valuable skills that he uses in all areas of his life.
Exactly. So let's flip the script a bit, even if you're not hitting the books for a test. How can we apply these insights to everyday challenges? What if exam prep is just a metaphor for like how we approach any kind of learning or growth?
That's a great way to look at it. Think about it. We're constantly facing new situations, learning new skills, trying to level up in different areas of our lives.
It's like life is one giant open book exam,
Right.
and we're all just figuring out how to best navigate it.
Exactly.
So let's break it down. One of the big takeaways from this book is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning.
Right. The author encourages us to embrace our unique learning styles, even if they're a bit unconventional. He was constantly being compared to his focused brother, but he realized that trying to be someone he wasn't was just setting himself up for failure.
It's like he gave himself permission to be scatterbrained and then figured out how to make that work for him. So what are some of the signs that someone might have a more scattered learning style?
Well, they might find it hard to sit still for long periods, or to focus on one task for too long. They might jump between ideas quickly or get easily distracted.
They're probably the ones who doodle in the margins of their notebooks or have a million tabs open on their computer.
Exactly, and often these folks get labeled as unfocused or disorganized, but that's not necessarily true. They just have a different way of processing information.
So instead of fighting against those tendencies, the book encourages us to work with them to figure out what helps us stay engaged and motivated, even if it means like breaking the traditional rules.
Right, like the author's approach to multiple choice tests, writing out his reasoning for each answer, even if he thought he knew it, that might seem counterintuitive to someone who's more linear in their thinking. But for him, it was a way to force himself to really engage with the material and uncover any gaps in his understanding.
And that strategy can be applied to so many things beyond exams. It's about like actively engaging with information, not just passively consuming it. So if you're trying to learn a new skill, for example, don't just watch a tutorial. Try to apply what you're learning right away, even if it's messy or imperfect at first.
Exactly. That's how you really solidify the knowledge and make it your own. The author calls this output learning, and it's a powerful tool for anyone who wants to learn more effectively.
And it plays into another big theme in this book, the importance of finding your own rhythm. The author realized that he couldn't force himself to study in the same way as his brother. He had to find what worked for him, even if it meant breaking the mold.
Like his approach to memorization, waiting until the final 30 days to start cramming. Most people would advise against that. But it worked for him because it aligned with his natural energy levels and learning style.
It's like he figured out how to ride the waves of his motivation instead of fighting against them. And that's something we can all learn from. We all have those days where we're super productive and focused, and then other days where we just can't seem to get anything done.
And that's okay. It's about recognizing those patterns and finding ways to work with them, not against them.
So instead of beating yourself up for not being a morning person or for needing more breaks than your colleagues, figure out what helps you stay focused and energized throughout the day.
Maybe you need to block out time for deep work in the afternoon when you're naturally more alert. Or maybe you need to schedule in regular movement breaks to clear your head and recharge.
It's about finding what works for you and creating a system that supports your unique needs and rhythms. And I think this book is a great reminder that learning is a lifelong journey. It's not just about getting good grades or passing tests. It's about constantly expanding our knowledge and understanding of the world.
And it's about embracing our individuality as learners. We all have different strength, weaknesses, and preferences, and that's what makes a learning process so interesting.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to challenge you to think about how you can apply these insights to your own life. What scattered study tips have you discovered that work for you? What moments in your life have forced you to adapt your learning style? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and remember, keep learning, keep growing, and keep embracing your unique brilliance.